Alright guys, welcome to today's video. Since the last video, I did put the seat in. It took me way too long, and I got the harnesses in, kind of strapped together. I feel like that's all so far. Oh yeah, we also bled the handbrake yesterday. My phone was dead, so I wasn't able to film anything, but it's starting to come together. I just need to stick the surround here, and then we're gonna finish the TSDash. We're gonna do some cool stuff with the TSDash today. And then the glove compartment, I won't have a passenger seat for Polecat. That's kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. Basically, the other set of harnesses isn't going to come in time, so no use getting a bucket seat and everything for it. All right, let me go grab the Raspberry Pi dash, and I will show you what we're gonna work on today. All right, so this is the Raspberry Pi dash. Only real change since the last time we saw it is I redesigned this little angle bracket so that it has a mount for the power supply. Right now it's set up simply to get switched power, this Deutsch connector, which powers, this is a 12 volt to 5 volt converter, then 5 volt converter basically to run the Raspberry Pi dash off of. The problem with this is that when I turn key off power, it basically just cuts power completely to the Raspberry Pi, which can corrupt SD cards. I know a lot of people that are just running them that way and don't have a problem, but our kind of phase 2 of this that I'm going to start doing will allow me to do a safe shutdown circuit and should help with some of the playability stuff with it. So one of the problems with this, which is kind of why I was able to get it from Jared, since Jared used to use this as a his main dash in his car, was that it takes a good amount of time to start up. So let me plug it in and we can baseline it real quick. All right, so now that I have this in, so I'm going to start it up and we'll just see how long it takes to start up. All right, so that was right at about 1:10, I want to say, which probably fine in the grand scheme of things, but realistically, I'd like it to go a little bit faster. So in my research of what to do in order to kind of fix this, I found that in the last probably year or two, Tuner Studio has come out with their own version of the dash software, and not the Shadow Dash, but actually like a Tuner Studio Dash, which is a Raspberry Pi program that removes basically all the extra stuff so that you could really quickly just boot it up and get it straight to just the dash part. It does strip out all of the like tuning ability of it, but I don't actually plan on tuning off of it, and it has this extra, call it Echo Dash feature, to connect to the Pi Dash basically remotely so that you can use a laptop, which is probably a little bit better than what we have now, because with this we would have to basically get back behind there, remove the USB port, and then plug it into a computer, and then while doing that I wouldn't have access to the dash at all. So this would be a little bit more seamless. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up, and we'll do like a comparison to see how fast it starts up and see what cool stuff we can do with it. Hopefully I can keep my same dash setup, because I spent a lot of time designing that kind of gauge cluster setup. But it'd be pretty cool. All right, so I've got the Raspberry Pi downloading the image and writing the SD card. So while that's going on, I'm gonna throw that guy back in, and probably the glove compartment. Actually, I'm gonna wait on the glove compartment because I may need to run one more wire. So leave that open for now, but I'm gonna throw this guy back in. so we've got that installed. Took a little bit longer than I had originally intended, as the this wire harness for these wipers I put on the wrong side of one of the bolts, so I had to take this whole thing apart. All right, so that little SD card right there. So now it has the new image for the Raspberry Pi TSDash. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this started, and then while that's started, I'll get my laptop out. I think you have to configure it in some way from a laptop, maybe. I don't know. We're about to find out though. All right, so I've plugged it in, turned it on. It's been going for probably about a minute now of just a black screen. I think it does this on the setup. That's what it said. So we'll do the kind of an official test once I get this all set up. I can kind of show you what it looks like and how everything goes together, because this is pretty cool. I think this would be a big step up for those of us that are trying to do these like Raspberry Pi Dash gauge setups. All right, guys. So I spent a ton of time tinkering with the Raspberry Pi, trying to get it to kind of cooperate with me. So I made some good progress, but I got to a stopping point because the battery on the Miata was pretty much dead. So it was doing some weird stuff. I wanted to rule that out. So it's currently charging. So for now, what I'm going to do, I've got some relays and stuff that I'm going to use in order to do a safe shutdown on it with the new TSDash setup. So in order to get that mounted in the car, I'm going to make a little 3D printed hat for the Pi. So I'm going to do some modeling. Need to go into the printer, and hit go. Should be about an hour and a half, and we'll have parts to put together. Sick. All right, it took me 3 tries, but I got it figured out. So these guys just sitting here. So I originally didn't have the cutout. I completely forgot about the fact that all the pins protrude through the bottom. So I had to redo that. And then I was a little bit close on the cutout so that some of the pins were touching on opposite sides. Added a little bit more clearance for that, more or less. That's how it's gonna sit. And then on the back side, I have the hex cutouts in there, and then what we're about to do now is we're going to take some of these hex nuts and use the soldering iron and kind of melt them down into place so they are captured nuts. Now you can see that I have those nuts encapsulated in there. So now I should be able to take my relay boards and just kind of screw them in. Neat. Looks pretty good. I do need to make these holes like a tad larger for if I was ever to reprint this. As they just thread in, they should be a 3.1 millimeter instead of 2.5. So, but I mean, it's solid on there, so that's good. 3 stories of Raspberry Pi right now. Cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this wired up. Looks like. I really wish that I had a more, like a cleaner way of doing this. There's a lot of like 2 wires bridged in, and because I didn't want to have a ton of solder joints to bridge a lot of these, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe I'll come back later and come up with a custom PCB. Since PCBs aren't really that expensive to build, it's just all the research of the other circuitry that's needed, especially with this 3.3 volt setup. So maybe one day I'll come up with a slicker solution for all that. But for now, that's what we have. So the big difference in the car, now we have that extra pin for constant battery power. So coming to the car, we have constant battery power to the relay that's up here, but I don't have it going to the connector over there. So I need to run one more wire up to there, solder it in to the connection that's for the relay, and then it'll come all together, and then we could call this project pretty well complete. I just need to get the software side all complete. So let's get into that. After what seemed like forever, I found that there is a problem with my circuit. So what I need to do is I need to put a diode right there so that I can't backfeed into the relay. So thankfully I ordered a bunch of diodes, as I had a whole different way of essentially building this circuit before. So yeah, I'm gonna go grab a diode from what I bought, the system, and what essentially it is this orange line right here. I'll have to essentially put a diode right in the middle of that so that I don't end up bridging the connection over. in. You can kind of see it. It's in heat shrink there. And so now it works. So we've got both of them turned on. So all 3 relays turned on. It's on. Now if I turn the key off, my AFR gauge finally turns off. This basically loses connection to the ECU because the ECU's turned off. The first 2 relays are off, and then the last one is on, and then after 10 seconds, there it goes, and it turns everything off. So the neat thing is that I can make that that timer, 10-minute timer, so that it boosts, it'll turn on basically instantly instead of having to wait for it to completely reboot, because the initial reboot still is a decent amount of time. I'm gonna go ahead and time it now. Cool, so I just restarted it. I film everything on my phone, so I needed my phone for the timer. The original, I believe this is a Raspberry Pi 4 instead of a Raspberry Pi 3, which is what I thought originally. But with the Pi 4 and just a regular version of the Raspbian OS and Tuner Studio, it took 1 minute 39 seconds to start up from just cold. With the TSDash version of Pi, so it's like a slimmed down version with Tuner Studio and everything, it's literally the image flash from the website. This took 37 seconds, so a little over a minute taken off of the complete time. So what was that, like 60% reduction, 66% reduction? So that's pretty solid. And then now with the shutdown circuit, I should be able to turn it off, and then everything goes dead. And then if I get back in the car pretty quickly, turn power back on, it just reconnects and everything starts back up and reconnects. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm probably gonna change that to be like a 10-minute timer, so that if there's any sort of situation where I need to jump back in the car after within like 10 minutes, it'll just start right up. So it'll be real simple. So anything where like maybe the car dies, I got to restart it or something, like then the dash won't necessarily die in that process. But cool, I'm super stoked that that actually worked out. I'm sure this series has taken a long time, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this video here. I am going to put a second video out specifically on this TSDash and the Echo, like Dash Echo software, to try to get a little bit more information, because I know I spent a very long time trying to figure it out because there's not a whole lot of information out on it. I think it's because it's still kind of in a beta, like test version. So I am going to go back and use probably a couple clips from this, but add a little bit more so I could add some more detail on how to get it started, because I would have saved a ton of time knowing some basic stuff. Otherwise, I was just sitting there like restarting it 50 times, trying to figure it out. I've probably spent way too much time, like hours, just sitting in this chair trying to figure out how to get Tuner Studio and the Dash and everything to communicate. And I still am having some issues with the Echo software, but I mean, we've made some significant progress. So, but anyways, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.